There isn't a video game series out there that does side quests quite like Yakuza. Like, honestly, is there any other video game series out there that has side quests that encapsulate what the series in question is all about? I don't think so, and that's what makes the Yakuza / Like a Dragon series so unique. Its sub-stories perfectly blend the serious and the whimsical aspects of the series, but sometimes they can go a little bit off course. To be blunt, sometimes they can also encapsulate the worst aspects of the series, and sometimes they utilize genres that don't really gel well with the whimsical crime thriller elements the series is known for. In this video, we're going to analyze all the sub-stories in the Yakuza series that do this. So grab a drink and some popcorn and enjoy the ride, because it's gonna be a bumpy one. Have you ever heard of the movie Ringu, or Ring in English? Yeah, this sub-story is very much inspired by that movie. The premise is more than a little bit different, though. Basically, Kiryu runs into this strange man begging him to take a videotape he doesn't want anymore. And this man is very vague about why he doesn't want the tape anymore. But Kiryu budges anyway, taking the tape, then going to an adult video store and watching it. Kiryu doesn't seem worried, but there's still a problem. Kiryu is cursed. Now, the creepiest part of this sub-story happens towards the end. After encountering a scam exorcist, who chickens out of exorcising Kiryu after realizing that Kiryu's curse is actually real, this happens.
Oi.
After finishing this sub-story, I was speechless because I had no idea of what just happened, what you just saw. Did he kill the ghost by dropping the tape? What was the ghost about to do? You're just left with this very unsettling feeling after finishing this sub-story. In order to trigger this sub-story, you have to watch multiple adult films until the clerk at the adult film shop suggests that you look for a videotape that's more than a little bit different than the usual adult videotape. Apparently, this videotape is so extraordinary that it doesn't just make you come, it makes you cry too. And I quote, "After you watch it, you'll be all soaked from sweat, tears, and various other bodily fluids," says the clerk. The extraordinary videotape can only be acquired by asking a lady in a white dress who happens to lurk around Sotenbori to give it to you. The store clerk really needs to reignite his dead libido, so he begs you to look for the tape. And that's exactly what you decide to do because you're a kind-hearted soul. Once you find the lady in a white dress, she'll tell you she's cold.
Good.
Off the bat, you could tell something's off about this woman. Her energy is very off-putting, and she doesn't say anything else aside from the fact that she's cold. I don't know about you, but people that only respond to you with one word or phrase every time you try to talk to them absolutely terrify me. People that remain silent every time you try to talk to them are even scarier. To me, at least. So the uncanny vibe is set. But Majima, nonetheless, still wants to help this lady not be cold anymore. So he comes up with the bright idea of getting her some hot food. The food specifically being Odin. You fetch the Odin from a convenience store, and then you go back to the spot where the lady in white is at, and give her the Odin.
Good. Huh? Huh? Boy.
That was very weird and creepy. Anyway, now that you have the videotape, you go back to the adult video store, and you try to watch what's on the tape with the store's clerk.
Hmm? Huh? Yeah. Huh? Oh.
Now, that wasn't necessarily scary, but it was pretty unsettling. Really, the reason why this substory is on this list in the first place is because of how mysterious and uncanny it is. No information is given to us, the audience, about why this lady is the way that she is, or what she actually is, or what the fuck was on that videotape. Was the lady in white a ghost? I'd say that it effectively utilizes fear of the unknown and the unexplained very well to elicit discomfort from the viewer. And her smile is just very creepy. On top of that, can we acknowledge that ghosts might be canon in the Yakuza series? Yeah, those ghost substories are easily one of the creepiest things this series has ever done. Emphasis on one of, though, because yes, it gets creepier than this. But first, let's talk about a substory that's a little bit more on the offensive side. So this Yakuza 3 substory is just weird, and I say that because it depicts a very out-of-character Kiryu. The substory starts with a woman and a man arguing in the middle of a street. The woman happens to be a transgender woman. Kiryu, nonetheless, tries to intervene, which angers the man, who then tries to fight Kiryu. After beating him up, the transgender woman introduces herself as Michiru. She tells Kiryu that she would like to express her gratitude in the form of a kiss, and Kiryu, who appears to be disgusted, decides to run away from her. That's not the Kiryu I know, especially considering the fact that there's another substory featuring a transgender character that depicts Kiryu to be very open-minded and empathetic. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a bad decision to remove this substory from the remaster, especially considering how terrible the controls are in Yakuza 3's chase sequences. I was hesitant about talking about this substory, because the things I'm about to describe make me extremely uncomfortable. But there's a reason why RGG put this side quest in Yakuza 5, and that reason was to depict how disgusting the Japanese idol industry can be. All that to say, from this point onwards, we're going to start talking about some disturbing content. This is a trigger warning for those that find topics that involve violations of one's personal boundaries too distressing. Now, this sub-story isn't actually a sub-story in the traditional sense. It's a part of a list of idol activities you can do as Haruka in Yakuza 5, because you know, she's an idol in that game, and you can play as her. It's actually divided into 3 separate parts, so technically it's 3 sub-stories in one if you want to look at it like that. Anyway, in these activities, you're supposed to run around Sotenbori while being recorded by a film crew for a TV show called Running Girl. Now, that sounds a bit weird, but it's not creepy or disturbing. What were you on about, Sega kid? Well, yeah, when I describe it like that, it sounds innocent. Here's the thing though. In that description, I didn't include the fact that the film crew is very up close with Haruka. So much so that they take ass shots. She's 16 years old, by the way. I think you can see where I'm going with this. They also stipulate that she run as fast as she can so that she starts panting and sweating. Now, why would they stipulate that? Oh, well, first off, the director gets off on it, as in he's sexually aroused by it. Second off, the audience likes it for those same reasons. I don't think I need to provide an explanation for why this is both sickening and disturbing. This whole show is basically PDF file bait, and apparently it's based on a real-life TV show with the same premise, but thankfully the real-life version doesn't feature literal teenagers. Now, this sub-story is just odd, and after watching someone replay it, I was left wondering why it even exists. For those that haven't done this sub-story, it's one of Tanimura's sub-stories in Yakuza 4. As you know, Tanimura lives in a community known for its large immigrant population called Little Asia, which is located in Kamurocho, of course. The premise of this sub-story is that some of the kids in this community have been spray painting graffiti with anti-Japanese messaging. So Tanimura's task is to find the children responsible for the graffiti. After you find all the children, you take them to the playground to give them a stern talking to. So the parents of these children were deported by the Japanese government back to their respective home countries. But in the process, they literally separated these parents from their children. Now that's some fucked up shit, right? Especially when you consider Japan's real-life colonial history with all of the countries mentioned, which is what caused these people to immigrate in the first place. So what's Tanimura's response to these kids? Well, it sure is something. No, Tanimura, I do not see where you're going with this. No, Tanimura, they're blaming Japan because it was literally the Japanese government that deported their parents. What the fuck are you going on about? Okay, now you've lost me completely. Did Tanimura take drugs or something before he talked to these kids? Because that was a strange response to children who just told you that their parents were deported. I honestly didn't know what to say after watching that. It's like whoever wrote this sub-story wanted to make a really controversial statement, but then chickened out at the last minute, which led to them writing the most politically correct message they could possibly think of. Like, for real, these kids are mad because their parents were deported by the Japanese government. And here's Tanimura awkwardly pontificating vapid platitudes about meritocracy. This sub-story is more weird than anything else, man. You know how most people who are addicted to porn say that they first got hooked on porn after being introduced to it by an older person in their life, whether it be their brother, cousin, and/or friend? Well, in this sub-story, Kiryu is the older person in the equation. He runs into a kid who really wants to buy a porno magazine from a vending machine. Kiryu is initially hesitant, but he eventually convinces himself to buy this little child a porn magazine. Now, I understand that he was young and in over his head, but even in this sub-story, Kiryu can still recognize that what he's doing is wrong, given the fact that he tries to buy the porn for the kid without being seen by any other adults in the area. Literally, while playing this sub-story, if you run directly into another adult, you fail the sub-story. Canonically though, you obviously successfully buy the kid the porn magazine. The fact that the game itself depicts this child successfully getting the porn he wanted as a good thing is honestly really weird and creepy. Kiryu literally just ignited what will be this child's porn addiction. Overall, yeah, this sub-story is just fucking gross, man. We interrupt this program to remind you to tap that subscribe button. And if you're feeling extra generous, tap that like button too, especially if you're really liking this video so far. Okay, back to the video. Okay, so in order to trigger this sub-story, you have to complete all the Aloe Happy activities in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Once you do this, you have to talk to the Aloe Happy employee, Elizabeth. She'll ask you to buy her some gifts. Obviously, after you buy her all those gifts, you must give them to her, and then that's how the sub-story is triggered. Oh, so this is going to be a dating sub-story, right? She's caught feelings for Ichiban, and now she's going to ask him out. But then he'll reject her because, you know, Ichiban has his heart out for another woman named Saiko. And Elizabeth is gonna respect that, right?
ここでやるのか。で、最高のアクティビティってのは一体？
お客様だけの素敵なアクティビティ。それはわたし。
は？
あら、聞こえなかったかしら。ならもう一回。おほん。ふふふ。お客様だけの素敵なアクティビティ。それはわたし。
Okay, she went a little bit further than I predicted. So she wants Ichiban to do her. Pretty obvious what that means, right? I don't think I have to explain that.
どういうこと？
もう鈍感な男ですね。わたしと楽しくラブアクティビティしましょうって言ってるんです。第一印象は不器用なヤバい客だと思っていたのですが、アクティビティを楽しむあなたの姿勢や無邪気な少年のような笑顔に徐々にもうこの思いは止められないのです。恋はノンストップと言うでしょう。
気持ちは嬉しいけどよ。俺にはその心に決めた人がいるし。
オーマイガー。そうなんですか。
はあ、そうなんだよ。
仕方ないですね。まあ、オッケーです。ワンナイトアクティビティ。遊びでもいいですよ。アクティビティだけにね。
人の話聞いてたのかよ。やっぱダメだよ。さよなら。ちょっと。
へい、アロハッピーちゃん。
アロハッピーちゃん、邪魔だよ。アロハッ ピー。
ハワイならではの最高の体験をお客様に届けるのが私どもアロハッピーツアーズの使命。今までで一番思い出に残る最高のおもてなしをしちゃいます。さあお客様もご一緒にレッツアロハッピー。
あ、アロハッピー。
So the joke is that she raped Ichiban. Actually, no, not just her. I guess the guy in the mascot costume participated too. Regardless, I'm gonna play you this Cat Williams clip to illustrate how I feel about this sub-story.
Problem with Friday After Next is we're trying to make a classic comedy. And this comedy involves a and never funny, no matter who it happens to or what the circumstances are.
Like Cat Williams said, just isn't funny, man. What were RGG thinking when they put this sub-story in this game? Anyway, there's nothing more I have to say about this sub-story. It just speaks for itself with how fucked up it is. So this sub-story starts with a guy named Shiobara asking Akiyama for employment at Sky Finance, Akiyama's credit company. And while Akiyama is initially hesitant, his secretary convinces him to hire Shiobara. After the two of them chop it up once more about their backgrounds and other topics, a woman and her child come into the room. Now, before I go on, I have to give some context. Akiyama's company, Sky Finance, is a credit company that gives out loans not based on credit ratings, but rather based on how committed the client is to get their desired loan, measured by tests, as Akiyama calls them. In other words, you have to pass the tests that Akiyama gives you in order for him to give you the loan. On top of that, these loans are interest-free. Okay, now that we have that context in mind, we can talk about how this woman and her child heard about Sky Finance and their interest-free loans, then came over to the Sky Finance office to personally ask for a loan from Akiyama. Here's the thing though, this woman and her child are in a very dire situation. The reason she is asking for a loan in the first place is because her husband, who has an addiction to gambling, put them in debt. On top of that, he's an alcoholic, and he's also very violent. So this woman, with her child, is asking for a loan because she wants to escape a house filled with domestic violence and abuse. Now, Akiyama's requirements for a loan remain the same regardless of what situation his clients find themselves in. So the test that Akiyama gives her is that she needs to find a job within the course of 3 hours. She's a bit taken aback by the time frame Akiyama gave her, but she's still nonetheless determined to pass the test. So she walks out of the room and sets her sights on the prize. While Akiyama and his apprentice are waiting for her, her husband barges into the room, demanding that they tell him where his ex-wife is. And since this is a Yakuza game, we take care of him by giving him a good old beating. After the husband runs away, Akiyama and Co. continue waiting for the woman inside. After some time passes, she comes back unsuccessful, telling Akiyama that every business she tried to get hired at rejected her, either telling her that she is too old or that the business has enough help. And that's understandable given how it's pretty impossible to find a whole-ass full-time or part-time job within the course of 3 hours. So after hearing that, Akiyama then asks her if she tried the red light district, further going on to say, with no subtlety, that with how good-looking she is, she could have found a job at a massage parlor or places like that, which is a subtle but not subtle way of saying that she could have found a job as a sex worker. In Akiyama's mind, she's failed the test. Now, I understand why Akiyama's rules are very strict, but the situation that woman and her child were in was beyond dire. Remember, she and her child have to deal with a violently abusive alcoholic, and they're in debt. Akiyama definitely should have made an exception for this situation. This sub-story just depicts him to be a very cruel person. Actually, that undersells it. He was honestly a piece of shit in this sub-story. He was basically like, you have to do sex work in order to get a loan from me. How is that not fucked up? Thank God he didn't say that she has to have sex with him specifically in order to get the loan, but what he said was still fucked regardless. I appreciate the honesty though. He did say he doesn't give people money just because he feels sorry for them. This sub-story is still extremely mean-spirited though, and honestly, hard to watch. And that's why I think it's the most unhinged Yakuza sub-story. If you disagree, you can suggest some sub-stories you consider more unhinged in the comments. Maybe I missed some. And make sure you subscribe too, because you don't want to miss the next Yakuza video, which will, hint, be about some attractive Yakuza characters. Stay tuned for that.